Ben Shapiro, dumb ideas Putin shouted today. One, economic sanctions work. Dude, economic sanctions literally work. Lamau, economic sanctions don't work. Iran's economy has been devastated by Trump's sanctions. Funding has been cut to Iranian terrorist proxies. Iran's military has been deterred from attacks on Americans by Trump's actions, but somehow it's just Iran being suddenly reasonable. Yeah, economic sanctions do work. They just work in like killing people in countries that you can flex on. Russia showcasing exactly why you can't flex on them with this past week's actions. Like, that's the point. You can do this to Venezuela. You can do this to Cuba. And it's disgusting when you do it to Venezuela. It's disgusting when you do it to fucking Cuba. It's disgusting when you do it to Iraq. It's disgusting when you do it to Yemen. These are countries that are suffering. These are countries that are dying from these fucking sanctions. When you do it to Russia, one, you're, again, engaging in collective punishment for the actions of a fucking regime that those people did not actually vote for or want. And two, more importantly than that, like, you're not even engaging in the actual appropriate sanctions because the appropriate sanctions would end up hurting your citizens. That's the whole point. Sanctions take effect over time, not in 1 week. I know, but Russia has already been fucking getting throat fucked by sanctions leading up to this, or numerous other things. Obviously never to this degree. International law exists though? No, it doesn't. International law is bullshit. Trade ties with tyrannical regimes moderate those regimes. The UN is a useful institution. The non Is he being serious? What? He's saying Putin shattered. Okay, he's right about that. He's right about these. Sorry, he's saying Putin shattered this. Economic sanctions do work if your goal is to fucking kill people, but he is right. The UN is a useful institution. He is right. Putin did shatter that. Non-treaty promises by major nations are trustworthy. Non-treaty promises by major nations are trustworthy. Putin destroyed that. International law exists. Yeah, I agree with Ben Shapiro on this. I'm not even kidding. Holy fuck, this is a good take from Ben. I was so ready to fucking disagree with what he was saying because it's Ben Shapiro and he usually has a fucking horrible take, but I do agree. But it's not Vladimir Putin that destroyed the concept of international law. Okay, international law was destroyed when it was built. It was built to be destroyed by those who perpetrated upon others. So international law exists. There is no international law only exists for smaller countries. International law, in the way that it works, only exists for America to uphold for other countries while consistently violating those exact same rules. Many of you, there's 124,000 people in here right now, so it's a good time to repeat something that many people don't know and are always shocked. Whenever people come in here and tell me, Hasan, what are you talking about? International law is incredibly important to me. It's incredibly important to you. It's how the world goes around. And I tell them, have you ever heard of a little rule called the Invasion of the Hague Act? There you go. For those of you who don't know, the United States, under George W. Bush, created a law called the Hague Invasion Act. A new law supposedly protecting U.S. service members from the International Criminal Court shows that the Bush administration will stop at nothing in its campaign against the court. U.S. President George Bush signed today into law the American Servicemembers Protection Act of 2002, which is intended to intimidate countries that ratify the Treaty for the International Criminal Court, which authorizes the use of military force to liberate any American or citizen of a U.S. allied country being held by the court, which is located in The Hague. So when America and American service members, or even allies of America, engage in war crimes that we have sanctioned off, which we do many of, we have the legal right to be able to go and invade The Hague. So talk to me more about how you think international law exists. There is a law for that. Now tell me, how is this any different than Vladimir Putin being like, yeah, the fucking, these two territories in Donbass, Ukrainian, I'm signing a law that recognizes that those are independent territories now. And then also I'm signing a law that dictates that we have to go protect them. That's what nations that are powerful do, okay? There is no fucking international law. If you got nukes, you don't need to worry about international law, baby. You can do whatever the fuck you want. That Hague law is precisely what is used to prevent Israel from having any accountability to. Well, that too. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but Israel also annexed territory, and it wasn't even like it was true, pure colonialist, imperialist territory expansion. Whether it was settler terrorism in lands that were not even allotted to the Israeli government, or whether it be the annexation of Golan Heights. Okay, that's just straight up a violation of international law. What punishments has happened in that situation? Here's another violation of international law: an artificially induced famine upon the people of Yemen. This is done by Saudi Arabia, our other incredibly important ally in the Middle East or in the Gulf region, in the MENA region. They are currently doing a genocide in Yemen. Straight up, okay? They're doing that with our weapons. Where is the international law there? Where is the fucking anger for any of that? There isn't one. No one gives a shit because, again, and by the way, this isn't to like take attention away from Ukraine or anything like that. This isn't to do like, what about us, which is why I love, you know, weirdo American defenders will always come in here and be like, what about us? But like, this isn't doing that, okay? I'm simply stating that like international law is not a real thing. It's not a real concept. It's a concept that like Western superpowers created specifically to force other countries into abiding so they can justify violating international law on their own. Notice the difference in reactions when we do it. Virtuous pride and patriotism. Oh, this was
shots being fired now in Baghdad.
Yeah, I mean, this was shock and awe. Yeah, of course. This was shock and awe in Baghdad. 72% of Americans supported doing the Iraq what Putin is starting to do to Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands killed, millions displaced, all based on lies. Ironically, less people support Vladimir Putin doing this to Ukraine, and that is tempered in comparison to what is still unacceptable, still gross, still disgusting, but tempered in comparison to what America did to Iraq. So, fair thought for Somalia this week as the U.S. bombs it for the first time in 2022, and the latest time in a 15-year-old war that never received enough attention for it to qualify as a forgotten war. I write all this not as facile whataboutism. I don't think there's any whataboutism necessary. You do not, in fact, have to choose between American and Russian imperialisms. The correct choice is to detest and resist both, with emphasis placed on resisting your own state's aggression, since you stand the greatest chance of success against something justified in your name. There's good stuff in Jacobin about this today. Noam Chomsky has regularly talked about this as well. Whataboutism is something that, you know, people love fucking bringing up every single fucking time you bring up anything that your country is doing. To the Arabs, to the Muslims, people watching me in other parts of the planet where your relatives get bombed on a daily basis, because there are some people I keep hearing, they say, why is there's so much attention on Ukraine? Unfortunately, the sad reality is that your pain is not unaddressed on this broadcast. I talk about this all the time. But the reason why you don't hear about it and this kind of coverage does not exist is because, unfortunately, the people that are oppressing you and the people that are bombing you are considered to be America's allies, and in some instances, Americans. And in a lot of instances, Americans. The reason why we get this level of attention on Ukraine is, of course, it's still incredibly important. Do not misunderstand me. But the reason why it gets a lot of attention here is because it's America's greatest foreign adversary engaging in this brutal action. That's it. That's the difference. I'm Syrian myself, and you're the only one that covers what happens in the Middle East. Thanks for what you do. Yeah. I was wondering if you could clarify a few points you made earlier. You mentioned that Ukraine joining NATO was an impossibility even before the invasion began because it tempted World War III. You have also stated that any Russian advancement past Ukraine would be stopped by a nuclear deterrent. I'm wondering how you reconcile these two ideas, since wouldn't Ukraine joining NATO effectively provide a nuclear deterrent for their invasion? Difference is Ukraine and Georgia are considered to be red lines for Russia, like openly stated by the Russian government time and time again in perpetuity, whereas other countries were luckier than Ukraine was. That's it. Poland is so hospitable when it's white people. Remember when Poland deployed 15,000 troops to keep out refugees from the Middle East and let them freeze to death? I'm sad for people in Ukraine under attack right now, but this conflict is another stark reminder what kind of lives really matter to Europeans and Americans. I mean, it's true. That is also sad, but it's the truth. Straight the fuck up. I mean, I'm glad that like Poland is opening and welcoming. I'm glad that Poland is welcoming people into their country. You know, well, they are neighbors. Yeah, okay, dude. They're still humans. You know, it doesn't matter if they're fucking neighbors. Poland and Ukraine are historic enemies. Lots of bloodshed over what land belongs to who. And they'll still unblinkingly give Ukrainians preferential treatment over brown people. Do a bunch of races. Just search the word Poland all day to reply to this shit. Don't you have a light bulb to screw in? Okay, dude. Not only that, but there's also calls for people to ban Ukrainian refugees from entering the West. If they're opposed to Afghan refugees entering the West after what NATO has done to them, imagine what these same people have to say about Ukrainian refugees. But they crossed the border of Poland and Ukraine legally, just saying, dude, legality in that circumstance is a piece of paper that you can wipe your fucking ass with. What do you mean, dude? Oh, legally? Don't come to me with like Donald Trump level fucking arguments, okay? We don't respect that shit around these parts. Come on, dude. I don't know why. This is the funniest thing. Maybe because I'm Turkish and I always have like a more international perspective on these matters. But it's always funny whenever like you see progressive people, right? You say that, but you don't pay for it. Yeah, totally. I live in America. I could pay for it. I pay for a lot more. Shut the fuck up. And yet the government doesn't spend it in the way that I would want it to. Okay. One of the funniest fucking things is legally because the Polish government stated you are Ukrainian. You can come in, but Afghan and Syrian, get the fuck out. So legal for Ukrainians, illegal for Middle Easterners. Yes. So here's the other thing. The other thing I was going to mention is like, a lot of progressive people, whenever they talk about like international politics, they forget that like the same principles apply in other countries too. That's why you see this like inherent contradiction with like a lot of progressive people who then will totally forget about those exact same principles when it comes to Israel, or a lot of progressive people who then forget those exact same principles when it comes to other countries that they feel like they have a they're first generation, second generation immigrants from, oftentimes European countries. It's very strange. Which, by the way, the fact that it's illegal for one group of people to join and it not illegal, you're not a U.S. citizen. Yes, I am. Why are you telling me what my citizenship is? What is going on right now in the chat? I mean, I guess there's a lot of new people, so like the what? Backseating my fucking citizenship status, dude. What the fuck? Homie just straight up said, your name is Hasan, and I don't think you're from around these parts.